Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Angelica Cable, and today I am sharing with you a discussion I had about the book Till We Have Faces by C.S. Lewis. Adeline, Esther, and I are talking about chapters 7 and 8, and I could literally see through the conversation that we were gaining wisdom. So enjoy. Adeline, will you recap what we read?
Yes. Oral goes into Psyche's room that she's being imprisoned in at the moment so that she doesn't escape. And she goes in there and she sees Psyche. And there's this picture that forever put in Oral's mind. And that's the Psyche sitting on a bed with a lamp. And so she rushes to Psyche. And it seems like Oral is more like the one who is being hurt by what's going to happen, because Psyche was so composed. So they talk about how Psyche's going to be sacrificed, really. And Psyche's like, I'm not scared. Like, this is something I've been feeling my entire life, and that's death. But not in like a suicidal way. She longed for something greater. And she's talking about all these things, and it seems very heavenly, like she's always been pulled to this something greater. And for her, it's the Grey Mountains. So when they were little, they used to fantasize Psyche would marry a king and he'd build her a palace up in the Great Mountains. But now she's going to be sacrificed to the god of the Great Mountains. So she's going to be married to the king of the Great Mountain. And then they talk about how marriage and being devoured were similar. Psyche says that each this marriage and the death of her maidenhood and having children, those are all like deaths, and so it is a sort of devouring. But she also kind of seems to hint that the brute, his lust, is like a devouring. Eventually, Oral is really mad at Psyche for wanting to die. And she has to leave without them making up. And then Psyche is sacrificed, and Oral is put into a state of utter madness for the rest of the time.
Excellent.
I think it's very interesting, her longing for the Grey Mountains, because I entirely agree with her. So she has this longing for beauty, this longing for heaven, this longing that is at the heart of every man, and Oral just hasn't found it yet.
Oh.
I also really resonated with a Psyche, but I didn't realize that Oral doesn't have that.
She's missing it. So in Anne of the Island by Ellen Montgomery, there's this one girl who's dying of tuberculosis. And so she was coughing up blood. She was dying of that. And she didn't understand that to die was to pass away from all these futile things. And she was always a very flirtatious young woman. And so she was missing all that. And she was heartbroken. She didn't know how to die correctly with a good heart. And she never had settled down with her life. She was 18. But still, she never had a point in her life. And so I think that's the opposite of Psyche. Psyche is a young woman who knows what she's going to go to do, and she's prepared for that death. And she's excited for it. That's what a believer should be. And it gives me a thrill reading what she says to talk about it. And I'm going to read this quote. She said, "Why, Bardia there," I love Bardia, "would look on it 6 times a day and whistle a tune as he goes to find it. We have made little use of the fox's teachings if we are to be scared by death. And you know, sister, he has sometimes let out that there were other Greek masters than those he follows himself. Masters who have taught that death opens a door out of a little dark room. That's all the life we have known before it, into a great, real place where the true sun shines and we shall meet." And then she gets cut off there. But she's showing that what she believes is that life is a dark room with no really light in it. And that's what it is for her. And then for Oral, and she understands that there is something greater. She understands that she's not the center of the universe.
So the tower that Psyche is in that needs a lamp even at noon reminded me so much of this life being a dark room. And really, it's light outside.
She knows that beyond that is the actual world.
I totally agree. The Psyche is very interesting with her philosophy because she's totally different from the fox, though she references him many, many times. She says that she's not afraid of death, but she does believe that there is something higher. And the fox, he doesn't want to believe anything except what he can see and what he can feel. And so Psyche is completely opposite. She doesn't want to feel or see. She wants to be in this state of spirituality.
I liked Psyche said, I have come to feel more and more that the fox hasn't the whole truth.
Her longing for going to the Gray Mountain is completely righteous and good. And I think she's showing very Christian feels. Because the truth is, as believers, we are in a world that we do not belong in.
Yeah.
We do not belong on Earth. This is just like a little trial. And I think that's very important to understand for Psyche, that does not belong on Earth. And she's meant for something higher. And that's really hard for Auril.
Yeah, that's what's so shocking. Because what does Auril have to live for in Gloam? She has a horrible existence. I almost, in this chapter, started thinking, like, is this like hell? I mean, because, Psyche brings up such a great point. If I stay here, what is in it for me? I'm just going to be sold off to some king who's probably as bad as my dad. And so why should Auril be attached to Gloam? There's nothing to attach her there. And she's not frivolous either, which I love the point, Esther, that you made, that if your life is frivolous and you're attached to futile things, then it attaches you to earth and you're not longing, for the Gray Mountains. But Auril, why in the world would she not want to leave?
The only two things that she says that connects her to Gloam are the fox and Psyche. And Psyche's, she's dead to Auril now. And there are times where she mentions that she doesn't want the fox to be brought up anymore. She wants it to be her and Psyche.
Yeah.
And so I feel like Psyche is Auril's only love. Like, truly.
She's her idol. She worships her more than every other person in Gloam. And I think that's really bad. And it's going to ruin her.
So Auril is very logical, but she's got this sense of, I need to fear the gods. But not because she feels that they're holy, but because she feels that if she doesn't, she'll be punished. So she has this bad fear of the gods. Psyche, on the other hand, she does not fear them whatsoever. Like the god of the Great Mountain. She's like, oh, well, I'm going to be married to him. And that's that. Auril, she's not ready to give her sister away to something that's supposed to be devouring her. And she doesn't see like the greater purpose of it. So Psyche is very people focused. So on the whole, she, even though she's hurting Auril, she's ready to sacrifice herself for the people. Well, Auril is more focused on the people that she loves. So she would rather sacrifice all of Gloam than let Psyche die. So Auril is a bit selfish in that sense, but I definitely see where she is coming from. And then the fox, they both have kind of different points of view on him. Auril sees him as a mentor figure that's really guided her through everything. But Psyche sees him more as like a grandfather, kind of, he knows a lot. He doesn't know everything though. He's very limited point of view. Auril sees him, more as knowing everything, other than the, fear of the gods kind of thing. She does differ from him there, but they do differ a lot in a lot of things. But the most is that Psyche sees this beauty, and she is that beauty. She's truly beautiful, and I feel like that's one of the reasons why she is beautiful, is because she feels the beauty. But Auril is ugly, and she does not know the beauty. So their appearances also reflect their view on the world and the state that it is in, and if there is a higher thing. Mm-hmm.
So I think both Psyche and Oriole have great reasons to try to get out of Gloam. But Psyche sees her chance and she's like, wait, this is great. Because she thinks something good is out there. And she's convinced of that, or mostly convinced, right? She's a little scared that she's wrong. But mostly she's like, I really think this is the source of beauty and this is what I long for. But I think Oriole doesn't see any, like you were saying. She sees no goodness. And so, although she has even a worse existence than Psyche, she's not trying to escape because she has no hope. There's nothing for her to look for that is good. She doesn't think that the outer world is good. I guess the only beauty she's ever seen is Psyche herself. And that's probably why it's so hard for her to give up and why she's given her whole life. You were saying, Esther, her whole life is designated for Psyche. This is an accusation against the gods, which is brought up again, but I was shocked when Psyche started giving a defense for the gods. It was such a switch and a very powerful one.
Oriole often says, the gods are tearing us apart. They're ruining our family. They're ruining the only good relationships in my life. What am I supposed to do about it? They've done nothing good to me my entire life, which is kind of true. Oriole gives this really long speech about how horrible the gods are to them. And she thinks that either the gods are not real and this horrible priest is ruining them, or that the gods are infamous creatures who are rejoicing in their evil. But Psyche, on the other hand, says, what if there are really gods? What if they're doing it for another purpose that we do not understand? What if I am to wed a god? Oriole thinks that she's being haughty and proud because she's going to marry a god. Which I think Psyche's just trying to glean any hope she can from the situation, and I admire her for that. It's really funny that these two chapters have completely switched right in the
Yes.
completely. So I actually think that Psyche I do this type of thing too, where I see an evil that's happening, and first I throw a fit about it, and then I start thinking, wait, what if this is a good thing?
Maybe Psyche's defense for the gods may be that the gods are doing things that look bad, but there might be something behind it that is good.
Yes, I agree. I think that is exactly why in life, God may take away people that we love and they may die, but that draws us even closer to wanting to go to heaven, wanting to die ourselves. And I think this is the point. I think it's going to try to get Oriole to look for the greater good, for the greater purpose in life.
Yeah, will Oriole's eyes ever be opened to something beyond Gloam? That'll be interesting. I want to read this quote. Psyche is talking about that she has this kind of longing for death. And Oriole says, "Oh, Psyche, have I made you so little happy as that?" "No, no, no," she said. "You don't understand. Not that kind of longing. It was when I was happiest that I longed most. It was on happy days when we were up there on the hills, the three of us, with the wind and the sunshine, where you couldn't see Gloam or the palace. Do you remember? The color and the smell, and looking across at the gray mountain in the distance. And because it was so beautiful, it set me longing, always longing. Somewhere else, there must be more of it. Everything seemed to be saying, Psyche, come. The sweetest thing in all my life has been the longing to reach the mountain, to find the place where all the beauty came from." It reminded me of the song we're practicing in choir, We Were Made for Heaven. So good.
We talked a lot about chapter 7. We've talked nothing about chapter 8, and it's after Psyche dies.
So Oriole was basically knocked out and sick for 2 weeks.
Oh.
And she was dreaming the whole time about how evil Psyche was.
Yeah.
And this seems to go more along the lines of the actual myth. And I started getting worried that she's going to change her mind and eat Psyche. And that's how how she will die by falling off a cliff. Which I don't know if she will or not, because this isn't the actual myth. But that's what happens in the real myth. And she dreams that she was pretty.
That's what made you want to cry.
She was pretty. And she had a lover. And one time it was the very unfortunate young man who was turned into a eunuch. And the other time it was Bardia. And she dreamed that she was becoming a bride and she was about to get married. And then Psyche, the size of her forefinger, walked up and pulled the man away and stalked off. And she just cried. And this happened a lot. And Psyche was just mistreating her. Psyche and Redival were throwing her off cliffs. Psyche and Redival were ruining her life and making her ugly. They were going off by themselves. Everything was going bad because of Psyche. And she woke up and it was raining. And she knew she loved Psyche.
Right. I followed the same pattern of thought when I was reading about her dreams. I was like, oh no, this sounds like the evil stepsister, like a typical, myth. So I just wondered what to do with that information because I know C.S. Lewis put it in there on purpose. But I did have a thought maybe because I don't think it's going to be that Auriel turns on Psyche. I can't imagine that actually happening, but maybe it's that what Psyche represents, the beauty of the gods, Auriel cannot handle that. And so the same way that Auriel feels about the gods, now she's beginning to feel, at least in dreams, she's beginning to feel that against Psyche.
Did I imagine it, or did she say that she thinks the gods placed those dreams?
Yes, she said, here's another accusation against the gods. You can't escape them even when you're asleep. They infiltrate your dreams.
Which there is a god of dreams and a god of sleep in Greek mythology. So that is true. And there are many times where they give mortals dreams on purpose.
I was also very surprised when it was raining. I was like, oh, I guess Psyche was supposed to be sacrificed and it wasn't just a false prophecy because the priest was jealous. Now the land is getting blessed again.
I want to know if there will be any more gods brought up other than Umget and the god of the Great Mountain.
I want to know if Auriel will ever see beauty and have that beauty reflected in her own self.
I want to know if the fox will die an atheist.
Yeah.
Because he's going to die in the book, for sure. He'll get murdered.
Murdered?
Yeah.
By who?
King. Because something horrible has to happen. So she becomes hard-hearted.
So she loses everything.
Yeah, she has to lose even more. And then Redival's going to be even more annoying.
Okay, one more question. What wisdom is in these chapters that you want to take with you?
The knowledge of the Grey Mountains, basically how we were meant to worship something higher. Mm-hmm. And the world is a dark room that when death opens, it opens a door to something even better.
How the world can tell you all these things about beauty and what it really is. But in your heart, you'll always know what beauty is, and that is God.
And I guess the glimpses of beauty on this earth are just small hints of the world to come. C.S. Lewis brought up some awesome things for us to think about. What are the intentions of the gods? How does beauty call us into the next world? I hope you join us next time. We're going to be discussing chapters 9, 10, and 11. So we'll see you then.